These are your notes for Chapter 8 over volcanoes. What do you know about volcanoes? I'm sure you've seen things on TV about volcanoes, or maybe you've made a simple project about volcanoes, but hopefully what this chapter will help you with is to learn more about them. Some benefits and disadvantages to volcanic eruptions could be the benefits could be that you would um, enrich the soil. The lava from a volcano is very fertile. And so you actually help the environment with a volcanic eruption with the crops that could grow there. Disadvantages to a volcanic eruption could include things like destruction of property and loss of life. A volcano is simply an opening in Earth's surface. It is a mountain of ash that forms from eruptions. There are approximately 600 active volcanoes on Earth. And maybe one that's familiar to you, Mount St. Helens in Washington, there was about 63 deaths from that one. And Mount Pinatubo, that is in Japan, was the largest this century, and 900 people died in that catastrophe. So what causes volcanoes to form? Let me talk to you a little bit about that. One thing that causes it is pressure and heat. Pressure and heat will melt the rock, and that rock will actually be less dense after it's melted and start to rise. That warm rock will rise up towards the surface. And then once it reaches the surface and flows out through an opening like a vent, it will be called lava. After that flows out onto the surface, it will cool and turn into rock. Igneous rock is volcanic rock, and it will harden, and the area that it hardens is called the crater. This is a picture of a volcano, and you could see the hardened material around it. The opening here is the vent, and then the area around it that is hard is the crater that we just mentioned. So where are volcanoes located? There are three kinds of places you can find volcanoes. One of them is convergent boundaries. Convergent boundaries are areas where the plates are moving together. Divergent boundaries are plates when plates are moving apart. And a hot spot is just an area where the mantle is warmer and all that warm magma will rise up towards the surface. So you can find volcanoes in all three of these locations. Here's a little bit more about that, like what I just mentioned about how the plates are moving, and examples of places that you would find these kinds of boundaries. Like Mount St. Helens is part of the mountain range called the Cascades, and that would be an area where the plates are moving together, a convergent boundary. Divergent boundaries, a couple examples for you would be like Iceland has many divergent boundaries in it, and ocean ridges, the plates are moving apart, remember, from seafloor spreading. One very good example of an area where there's a hot spot is Hawaii. The Hawaiian Islands have formed because of area that is warmer in the mantle there, and that material rises to the surface, and it has eventually formed those volcanic islands. Are all volcanoes alike? Certainly not. There's a lot of differences in different kinds of eruptions and things that happen. Some are violent and explosive, and some are quiet and slow in the way that they erupt. Why are there differences in volcanoes? Well, for one, the amount of water could be different. Water can affect an eruption. It can make it more explosive because when water heats up, it turns to steam, and steam creates more pressure, and it will make material blast out of a volcano more explosively. Trapped gases can affect a volcanic eruption. It can make it more explosive if there are trapped gases. And the type of magma, if the magma is really thick, it will be a more explosive eruption. And here's a little bit more detail of what I was just talking about with different kinds of things that can affect a eruption. Um, Usually, like water, if water is within a volcano, it will make it more explosive. And this tends to happen in subduction zones when one plate is sliding underneath another one, it'll trap water. Gases, if they're trapped, they can make the pressure really increase, and if that gas cannot escape, it becomes a violent eruption. And then, like I said before, magma type does affect it. If the magma is very thin and fluid, it would be the type similar to what would be called basaltic. And this would make the eruption very quiet, slow. Many of these types of eruptions happen in Hawaii over like hotspot areas, or like there's a rift zone, an area where the plates are moving apart in Iceland that makes it a slow eruption. If eruptions are explosive, it has a thicker kind of magma called granitic, and that makes it explosive and violent. And these tend to happen where the plates are moving together and there's a subduction zone. And the type of magma is very thick and gets trapped and tends to make it more explosive. An example of a place where that happens would be like Mount St. Helens in Washington. There are three main types of eruptions or volcanoes. Uh, One is called shield. A shield eruption will be quiet and it has that smoother, runny kind of lava. It has flat layers, and examples of that type of volcano are found in Hawaii and the Mid-Atlantic Ridge. This is just a picture of a shield volcano. It'll be very smooth, very dome shaped, uh, not much slope to it. A cinder cone volcano is very explosive. That type of volcano has thick lava. It's called granitic lava, and it has different kinds of material that will come out of it. It'll be like some will be small like ash, some will be a little bit larger, kind of a burning piece, and then some larger pieces are called bombs even. And this is the general shape of it. It has very steep sides, and it basically blasts out of the volcano, this kind. And many people think of cinder cone volcanoes when they think of a volcano. The shape of it is very steep. Composite volcanoes have kind of a mixture of types of eruptions. Some quiet and explosive eruptions happen with it. It has two kinds of lava, basaltic and granitic. It will remind you more like a mountain, and these happen where convergence and subduction occur. There are many different kinds of landforms that result from volcanoes erupting. There are ones that are within the earth, intrusive are what they're called. Um, Here are some examples of them. There's the batholith, which is very large, hundreds of kilometers in width, and this is like a whole big area of magma that has cooled underground. And actually, Mount Rushmore is an example of a batholith that has eventually just come to the surface. A dike is a vertical crack in Earth's surface that fills with magma. A sill is a horizontal crack in the Earth's layers. And then a laccolith is a sill that kind of pushes up and it forms a dome. So there are some different features you would find inside the earth. Other ones that you'd find more on the surface are the volcanic neck, and this is like the area where the lava is coming out, and it will harden and become more steep as time goes by. A caldera is if a volcano collapse and the top of it is kind of hollowed in. This has happened in Crater Lake in Oregon, and a lake is actually formed on top of it from rainwater. And a vent is an opening just to the Earth's surface. And if you had looked around the vent, that opening, there's a steep bunch of rock that forms around the vent called the crater. Any kind of lava flow that happens becomes a feature of the land as well. So there are many kinds of different landforms that happen because of volcanoes. All right, that is the end of the show. So you are now done with volcano notes.